Welcome everyone to another Geometry 2.2 tutorial video on the Geometry editor. I asked you guys what next trigger you guys want me to explain, and just to clarify things, I am going to explain every single trigger that's in 2.2, so don't worry if the trigger that you want to know more about has still not been explained yet. It's still gonna come, but yeah, I'm trying my best to explain every single one of them in depth. I'm gonna explain it step for step, every single thing, so you guys don't miss anything and understand every single thing about the item compare trigger. This is a very complex looking trigger, and that's because it's very useful also. And let me just talk about the basics of this trigger and what it really does. And it basically compares items or certain integers or values that are stored in your level. For example, you can check if the attempts are, you can see here the comparison statements. Down here you can see if the attempts are equal to 1, and there are two group IDs that you can set in here. If this is true, then this group ID is going to play, and if it's false, then this one is going to play. So let's just slowly go over this trigger by simply adding another trigger, which is simply just gonna pulse the background. Okay, let's just add a small trigger that's just gonna pulse the background to, let's say, dark red. Okay, so we have a trigger that just pulses the background to red and then back. And I'm just gonna copy and paste this and make it pulse the background to, let's say, green. Okay, so we have red and now it goes to green. Now what we wanna do is, I'm just gonna label them so that I don't, wait, what? This bug still is there. Like, I haven't changed the font and it's, oh yeah, now it's back. Okay, I am kind of surprised that this bug is still in the game, but that's quite this is the first time I get it, so that's a pretty cool one. So this is the pulsing background to red. So the first thing I want to do is go to edit group, select the first one, go to edit group, select a new group ID, set it to 1 for example, and the green one you want to make it 2. So the red pulsing background trigger has a group ID of 1, which you can see in here if you enable the show objects info, which is very helpful, by the way. And if you click on this one, you see it too. So next up, we want to select both of them and then go to edit object. You want to make them spawn triggered and multi-active. So what this does is, let's say we remove them for now, and then let me just do this. You see how the background is still like pulsing to red? However, if I make this to spawn triggered, it's not going to do anything. And that's because this trigger can be spawned through this one. And if you are familiar with how the spawn trigger works, you should know exactly what this means. But if you don't, just stick around for a bit and it's going to make a lot of sense in a bit. So you want to select both of them and make them spawn and then multi-active. Multi-active just basically means that if you spawn it, you can then spawn it again. Because by default, you can only spawn it once, but this time you can spawn it multiple times. And now both of them are on spawn triggered. And let's say if the attempts, okay, let's just start very simple. Okay, we're gonna ignore all of this, ignore all of these buttons, and ignore mode 1, mode 2, and ignore all of these weird buttons, which we are gonna talk about, and also ignore the tolerance. And let's just stay with the top right corner and also this statement. So if the attempts are equal to 1, this equal to means if the left side is equal to the right side. So if the attempts are equal to 1, we want to pulse the background to green. Okay, green was group 2. This one is green and it's on group 2. So we want to spawn it if we are on group 2. And group 1 is going to spawn if the attempts are not equal to 1. So now let's just put it on platformer mode and test it out. By the way, the effect appears once you reach in here. So the line is basically moving like that. So I would personally make this a touch trigger. So this only gets triggered if you touch it. And I would like to add a box on it, make it no touch. So now if you touch this trigger, it basically checks if the attempts are equal to 1 or not. So look at this. This is the first attempt. By the way, you can go to settings and show info label. Now this shows you up left. Okay, this is the second attempt now because I have restarted it. So I would suggest let's just move everything to the right so I can see stuff. So now it's attempt 1. Okay, so if I click this, it goes to green. Okay, now if I restart, now we are on attempt 2 as you guys can see. And now if I click, it pulses to red. And if you go into the editor, we can see that if the attempts are equal to 1, it spawns group 2, which is green. And if you are not on attempt 1, group red is going to be spawned. And we can test this again. Attempt number 1, green. Attempt number 2, red. However, attempt number 3, if you guys know what attempt number 3 is going to pulse it to, then you guys are on a very, very good track right now. And it's going to pulse it to red. Why? Because if you go on to the item compare trigger and look at this statement, we can see that if the attempts are equal to 1, we want to spawn group ID 2. So, is this true for the first attempt? Yes, it is true. So we're going to spawn group 2. We're going to make it green. And on the second attempt, this statement is false. So we're going to spawn group 1, which is this one. It's going to spawn a green, red pulsing to the background. And the third attempt is 3 equal to 1. No, it's not. So it's going to spawn false again, which is red. And now we get to the a little bit more juicy stuff, and where you can make this like really, really customizable. And it's these guys, these buttons. This button in the middle is very, very useful. So let's just, this is a lot of math. So if you guys know math, it should be very easy. But if you guys don't, I'm gonna have to help you a little bit. So let's just click on this. And now we have, if the attempts are larger than 1, then it's gonna do 2. Otherwise, it's gonna do 1. So let's test it out. So attempt 1, is 1 larger than 1? No, it's gonna pulse to red. Is 2 larger than 1? Yes, indeed, it's gonna pulse to green. Is 3 larger than 1? Yes, indeed, green. Green, and so on. Everything, one of them is gonna be green. So this is very simple, if attempts is larger than 1. Now let's click it one more time, and now we have a larger equal to sign. This means that if the attempts are larger than 1, or if they are equal to 1. So now if you play, the attempts right now are equal to 1. So it's going to go to green. And now they are larger than 1. So it's going to be green, green, never red. Because the attempts are never below 0, They are either 1 or above 1, basically. I think this is very simple also. So now let's click it one more time. Now we have a less than sign or symbol. If the attempts are less than 1, spawn group 2. So if the attempts are less than 1, pulse the background to green. Let's see. Is 1 less than 1? No, it's not. It's going to pulse to red, and all along it's going to keep pulsing to red. I think this is very self-explanatory now. And we have this sign, which means if the attempts are lower or equal to 1, basically. And now if you click it one more time, some of you may not know this, but this means if the attempts are not equal to 1. So if you play it now, is the attempts number 1 not equal to 1? No, this statement is wrong. So it's going to pulse green because I'm stupid, because I restarted the level. Okay, let's just play it from 0. Is attempt number 1 not equal to 1? Is this statement true? No, it's not. So it's going to pulse it to red. However, now we are on attempt 2. And is 2 not equal to 1? Yes, it's not equal to 1. So now it's going to pulse it to green. And yeah, I think these are all the things you have. Yeah, you can just keep looping on these to find the one that you want. And let's for now stay for the equal to. Is it equal to 1? Yes or no? And now let's say we want to make it, if the attempts are equal to 2, let's say this is like also another thing. Before I go to the modifier 2, I want to talk about why this can be really, really useful. So I've played a level recently. It's a platformer level that had a lot of cutscenes, And the problem with it was that the checkpoint was before the cutscene. So every time you had to die, you have to watch the cutscene over and over again, which was really, really annoying. However, with this trigger, you can fix this problem. You can check, are the attempts equal to 1? And if they are, you are going to do the cutscene, because this is basically the first time the player gets into the level. And is it not equal to 1? Then you just don't do the cutscene at all. And then the cutscene basically only happens on attempt number 1. And we can take a look at this actually in the where's this one? Look at this. If we start on very early, listen to this. Haha, righty, hello. And now let's say I die, okay? That was the first attempt right now. And now if I die and respawn again, nothing is gonna happen. Nobody is here, nothing happened. And now let's just restart again from 0, attempt number 1. The say words, we see the text, and this guy comes and talks. And if we go to the editor, we can see that, of course, there is a item compare, which compares if the attempts are less or equal to 1. So basically, if you are on attempt 1, I don't know why he did less than 1, but let's just say if the attempts are equal to 1, then spawn group 90, which is in Robtop's case, the cutscene of this guy just coming in here and talk, which is why it doesn't spawn on the second attempt. This is very, very useful for platformer mode, especially. I've used this in my own level, and it also comes with the item persist trigger, which is a little tiny bit more complex, but it doesn't really matter. We're gonna talk about that in an upcoming video or something. But now let's get on to the more fun stuff, a little bit of settings, you know. So now we have the modifier 2. If you just play around with this, you can see that this number on the right gets changed. So are the attempts equal to 2? So let's say you want to do something, let's say instead of these guys, let's say we want to like add a text, you noob just died. Let's give it a group ID of 3, and let's by default make 3 toggled. Okay, now 3 is toggled, and we're gonna make this one 4. This is like a new toggle trigger, and it's gonna toggle 3 on. You see here, now it goes on, but we wanna spawn it. So we wanna go to the item compare, and we wanna make it, if the attempts are, so if you have already died and you just respawned on attempt 2, we wanna spawn group ID 4. Group ID 4, because this one has 4 and it's spawn triggered. So yeah, if it's false, it doesn't really matter. You can just leave this empty. And now look at this. I'm on my first attempt, you know, I'm an epic gamer, and then oops, I just died. And now I go here, you noob just died, okay? Because that was like the second attempt. And yeah, you can play around with this. You can, if you want to do it like negative, it makes more sense to use perhaps item, which I'm gonna go over in a bit, but now let's just stay with the attempts. I think the attempts are very, very easy to work with. So the modifier 2 just basically changes this number, and the modifier 1 basically multiplies the number on the left by the given number by. This is so customizable, it's absolutely crazy. And yeah, this is where the math really comes in here. So this is basically useful if you want to do, for example, like an item. If the item is, I don't think many of you guys are going to use this, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think this is for like Serponge or people that want to make mini games. You can, like, you know, check if the item is equal to something times 2, or, you know, if the item 1 times 2 is equal to 2, for example, or something like that. It gets a little bit more complicated, I know, but yeah, nothing way too hard for now. So what you can do here, let's just move to these buttons. I think it makes more sense. Let's also stay with the attempts. So if attempts, let's say we are on attempt 1, if 1 times 2, which is 2, is equal to 2, then it's going to be true. And now let's just click this one, and now it's divided. So if the attempts, which is 1 in the first attempt, divided by 2, 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. So this is going to spawn false. And so on. You have the plus, you have the minus. This is very, very great. I really like how customizable this is. And we have the second button, which I think yeah, this button is basically for this one. So if you have a, let's say, okay, this is gonna get a little bit more, it keeps getting more and more complex. So what this button does is it basically, if you want to compare the attempts not to a certain number, but rather to an item or a time, a points, or this one is supposed to be attempts, by the way. Let's say we want to compare the attempts to the timer. Okay, now we have the timer, and then you have to also specify which timer. So if you go on here, we go to the pickup trigger, you can say that this is a timer, and we want to set it to the ID of item ID 3, and then you can set the ID 3 in here to specify that timer number 3 is the one that I'm talking about. And yeah, now we have, are the attempts times 2 equal to the timer, the third timer, divided by 2. This 2 is still in here, so you can play around with it. And yeah, you can actually divide by 0. So yeah, don't ask me. I wouldn't really try it out unless you like save your files or stuff like that. So yeah, this button basically is the same as this one, but this one is like on the other side. So yeah, this, like, I personally can't see myself using these divided plus on the both sides. It just sounds like a very deep, like if you really want something that specific in like a mini game or something, you might want to use this, but I personally don't see myself using that, to be honest. But it's pretty self-explanatory once you just click on it. And now we have these two empty buttons, which in order to click them, it's going to get really, really small. So I'm just going to have to adjust some values so that we can see. So let's just remove the timer and just stay with this default number. So also keep it at 1. And I also want to keep this one at 1. And also, yeah, like that. Okay. ABS. What does ABS mean? So these buttons can get a little bit too hard to understand, but I don't think it's that hard. So let's just move on from the attempts, and let's say we are on a item, which, in case you didn't know, it's just like the timer. You can set an item like that, and then you don't check anything. And this is like the item ID 10. Let's say if the item ID of 10 is equal to 1, and now let's say the item ID 1, we set it to, for example, 0.5, okay? And now you don't want to have these like decimal numbers, so you just want to round up. So what you do is you just click on this one, and then you see an absolute sign, or this neg sign, which this neg sign basically means that it's just going to round up things. So if it's 0.5, it's just going to round it up to 1. And yeah, this is basically just for decimals. And then we have the absolute, which I think does, wait, no, oh my god, I'm so dumb. Absolute, what it does, it rounds things up, okay? So absolute just rounds things up, and neg is if a number is negative, it just brings it back to positive. So yeah, if you put this on I10, for example, and I10 was negative 10, it just brings us back to 10. Or if I10 was negative 5, it just goes back to 5. And if it was 5 already, nothing is gonna happen. Yeah, absolute just rounding up, and neg just removing the minus sign before the number itself. And we also have the same thing on the other side. We have the absolute and the neg. I don't know what that stands for, to be honest, but and then we have these two buttons in here, which is almost the last thing that we're going to talk about today. So we have a NA in here, and usually if you just leave it like that, what it's going to do is it's going to drop all decimal points. And yeah, there are going to be absolutely no decimals. So if it's 1.3, it's going to remain 1. If it's 1.9, it's just going to remain 1, because it just gets rid of all the decimal numbers basically. And then we have the R and D, which basically just rounds the number to the closest. So if you are at 0.5, it's going to go to 1. And if you have 0.2, it's going to go to 0 because it's closer to 0, you know? And 0.8 is going to go to 1 and stuff like that. So just basically going to the closest number in a decimal number. And then we have the FLR, which stands for floor. Floor means it basically it rounds down the number. So if you have a integer, let's say I10 is 0.2, it's going to bring it to 0. If it's 0.9, it's going to bring it to 0. So basically it just rounds things up downwards, basically, you know. And the opposite of it is ceiling, CEI, which is basically just rounding things up. So if you have 1.2, it's just going to go to 2. So yeah, I think this is also self-explanatory. If you have 0.8, it's just going to go to 1. If you have 0.1, it's still going to go to 1. And yeah, these are just roundings. You have like a very decimal, like I personally can't see myself using these. I just, no, I don't think it's gonna ever happen unless I make a flippin' minigame in Geometry Dash. But yeah, we have the same buttons on the other side. We have basically all the same things, just like the things I explained. And you can see the pattern in here. These guys are for the guys on the left. This one is for the one on the right. If you have like this, yeah. And then we have this guy, and if you want to make it really, really small, you just click everything, and it looks absolutely insane. And you can also add a lot of numbers to make it really, really fun. And yeah, now you have a lot of, this is very small now. So yeah, I think this is all there is to explain in the item compare trigger. I mean, I can't really see myself, like I said, I can't really see myself using like these guys or the roundings and stuff like that. So you guys are going to have to see for yourself. I really hope this tutorial was explained well. I try my best to explain every single thing. And wait, I completely forgot about the tolerance. I almost missed that, actually. I was just playing around with the fun long stuff, so yeah, let's just bring it back to the normal, guys, so we don't have anything in here. So the tolerance is basically, let's go back to the very beginning. Are the attempts equal to 1? And now you can add a tolerance. So if you have a tolerance of 1, then even if the attempts are 2, it's still gonna return true, because you are basically adding or subtracting this number, which is 1, from the attempt. So if this is basically like it's checking for everything basically. So let's say attempts are 2 right now, then it's still gonna return true even though attempts are not equal to 1, but because you are gonna add 1 to it, it's gonna return true. And you can see here there's a plus and minus sign, so it could add or subtract. It really comes down to what is gonna return true at the end. And yeah, very simple. Also, you can like go crazy with this. You can go 5 if you want to, and this doesn't display in here. And yeah, I think this is all there is for this video. I really hope I don't miss anything. Yeah, I talked about everything. That's pretty cool. So I hope you guys had a fantastic day today, and I hope you guys understood what I have explained. And if you have any questions, just drop them down in the comment section, and don't forget to like if you enjoyed it, if you learned something new, subscribe if you really want to. And yeah, I might drop a new sneak peek about my new level, but we're gonna have to see.